Okay, we are live.
Okay, I call to order the Rolesville Town Board of Commissioners virtual work session, November 6, 2021. Thanks everyone for joining this virtual meeting online. Hope everyone is having a nice new month of March that started a couple weeks ago. And I would say with the time changing last night or 2 nights ago, well, it looks like we're getting close to springtime, and hopefully things will start opening back up and we can get back into some meet and greet type things. I'm really looking forward to that. But as for now, we'll keep things a little bit a meeting tonight. We do have 5 items on the agenda that we'll move through, and I will turn them over to staff to present those.
Ronnie, you're breaking up.
Okay. I don't know. You hear me okay now, Jackie?
Yes.
Is he breaking up to anybody else?
He was,
yes.
but now he's clear.
Yeah, you're breaking up. Okay.
Okay.
All right, Ronnie.
I will do a agenda just by acclamation. If there's any objections, we'll take a vote on it. So I ask, is any objections to the agenda? Not hearing any objections, then we'll proceed with the agenda, and I will turn it over to Kelly and your staff to start us off.
Thank you, Mayor Curran and Town Board. I'll introduce the topics, each one as we go along. And first one is going to be led by JG and then Amy. We want to give you just an update on some of the projects that are being considered by the Parks and Rec Advisory Board for possible bond referendum initiative in the near future. And JG will do an update on that. And when does the Park and Rec Board meet and their process potentially as they look at where they want to go with this item. And then Amy is going to introduce with Ashley Anderson, you all remember Ashley, really the steps of how you as a board go through formulating an initiative ultimately. Tonight really is only education only. There's no action. There's nothing that you need to do. This has been initiated by the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. They meet in a week, and from that, they will be telling you or us what they want or think might be a viable time period for an initiative. So really, it's just us to learn about projects and the initiative. So with that, JG, please take forward.
Kelly, before we start with the workshop, let's get Robin to take a quick roll call so we have official starter meeting here.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll make this quick. If you will all unmute yourself so you don't forget, and I'll do this alphabetically. Commissioner Medley, will you indicate your presence?
Is that yay or is that here? I'm here.
Here.
Here
Thank
works.
you. Commissioner Sneed.
Here.
Commissioner Sutton.
Here.
Commissioner Vilga.
Here.
And Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Back to you, Kelly.
So JG is ready to talk and lead on his part. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for this time this evening. As Kelly mentioned, the bond referendum is a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. But first, I'd like to give you a quick update on where we are on the farm 30% design. The surveying has been completed, so they do have a base map of the property now. They've worked out layouts for second access to 401 if granted by NCDOT. And also we've worked with the adjacent property owners to get access to Highway 96. So right now the master plan has been updated to show the flow of these accesses along with all the other surveying, so they're ready to move along deeper into the 30% design. We're hoping to get the design back by the end of May. And then by 1st of June, we should have the final cost estimate for the 30% design. So that's the big number that we're really looking for. So we're working hard to get that, and we're trying to condense that, but be as efficient as possible. We do have bi-monthly meetings, so we get more updates every 2 weeks from McAdams and all the consultants working on this project. Also, what we also talked about with this project, or for the bond referendum, is potentially including the community center that would go with the Cobblestone development. And with that, we have worked, we're working towards getting the RFQ out very soon to help us to understand the design of that project as well. That's the updates I have right now on that project. And if we want to get to Amy to go a little bit deeper into the process of the bond.
All right, great, thank you. So just a quick refresher for everybody on what we're talking about here. General obligation bonds, these are revenue or capital financing that does go out to the voters as a referendum. And they generally allow you, from a debt standpoint, they allow you to finance capital projects over a longer period of time and generally with a lower interest rate. The reason for that lower interest rate is because these are very safe investments for those who are buying the bonds. Because when you issue this type of debt, you're pledging the full faith and credit or the taxing power of your unit of government. So that's one of the reasons why you might want to consider going after this kind of debt financing. Now, there are a couple of major players when it comes to a geo-referendum, not only those associated with the town, the municipality, but also some external. We talk a lot about the Local Government Commission or the LGC. You know, I've mentioned them to you all several times when we talk about finances because they play an important role in North Carolina finances. Because they have to play a role in this process to actually approve the referendum and be assured that the unit of government can repay the debt that they're proposing. Another important player who is here tonight and joining us is Bond Counsel. So Ashley Anderson with Sanford Holzhauser should be familiar to all of you. Sanford Holzhauser does act as Bond Counsel. So she's here to make sure that I don't tell you anything and lead you too far astray. I appreciate her checking in with us. And then the last outside party that's involved in this is the financial advisor. And Davenport is a company that the town has used for several years now. Again, they should be pretty familiar to you. What I'd like to do to help you understand is to share my screen. And I want to share a document I put together, a flow chart. Can everybody see that? If you can nod or give me a thumbs up. Good. Okay. I thought that this flow chart might help us walk through the process briefly. So this is the big picture. So you can see there's a few circles here. There are a lot of steps to a bond referendum, but tonight we're just going to focus on the blue objects. Our goal is this one down here at the end where it's actually on the ballot. All of these blue circles leading up to it are where the governing board takes action. So where we start is this first circle, determining a plan for the bond purposes and amounts. This is just a very general plan, a round number, but this is an important step because the LGC wants to have some information from the governing board on what they intend to do before you make the application to them. So once you've determined the general amounts, the first formal step for the board is to adopt a preliminary board resolution. This is the one that has a 4 after it. The LGC needs to have this resolution adopted again in order to file the application with them. There are a lot of steps in between here for staff and council. We won't worry too much about those tonight. But once those things are done, the big one here is to file the application with the LGC. They have to accept your application, okay? Not approve, but accept. It's kind of like when you file your taxes. I just did that the other day, and the IRS says that they've received your return. Doesn't mean that they're processing it yet, but they acknowledge that they've received it. And that's kind of how this works with this LGC application. They receive it, but they're not necessarily approving it yet. But that has to happen before you can go on to the next formal step, which is to actually introduce the bond order. It's a simple one-page resolution, but it's your formal act as a governing board to say, yes, we are going to proceed with a bond for this general purpose and in this amount. At that time, the board also sets a public hearing. A certain period of time has to pass for public notice for that public hearing. And then the next action is down here to actually hold the public hearing. Based upon what happens there, the board then has the option to adopt the bond order officially, to set the ballot question and the referendum date. And then that's the last formal step by board before the actual referendum. Now, each of those blue circles, you can see there, and if you were following along on screen, you probably noticed over here to the right, each of these blue circles are about 1 month apart, given the timing that's required in between. One other important thing I do want to point out on this list is this one down here, it's in bold. It's the Wake County deadline to make a ballot. So that's the last date that we have available to make notice to the Wake County Board of Elections in order to get a referendum on the ballot. So sometimes when you're designing this process, you have to work backwards from that date in order to make sure everything has been addressed. Out here to the right-hand side, if you can see it, everybody's blocking my view of it, but let's see, there we go. Out here to the right-hand side are a couple of examples. We have a couple of elections coming up in the next 12 to 18 months, one being the municipal election this fall, and then another being the primary election next spring. So these examples just kind of walk you through how each of these blue circles would work out timing-wise. You can see how this first step, if you were to go with if you were trying to do something in the municipal election, your first step would need to be completed in April of 2021. If you're looking at the primary, you're looking at an action here probably around August or before. I think that's about it. If Ashley if you have anything major you feel like I misrepresented, please jump in.
No, I think you did. Amy did a great job of really highlighting the steps. And as she mentioned, the blue circles are when it would come up for a formal board discussion. I do want to address one quick point about the LGC. It's marked on the timeline as step 8, where we would file the LGC application. And at that point, you just have to have your application in. Amy's correct, and they just have to accept it. Later on, they will actually have to approve it. It's just, that's not as much of a strict timeline. It won't keep us from doing other things in the process. They just have to approve it at some point before either the June or October meeting, where you would adopt the bond order and set the ballot question. So there's plenty of time to get that done. It's just, as she mentioned, getting that in. I just wanted to make sure that you know that there is an approval component to that as well.
Ashley, I have a question. Is
Yes,
it realistic? Is it realistic for us to shoot for to get it a referendum on the November ballot?
So that is, from our perspective, that is perfectly doable. That depends on how ready you think your community is to be receptive towards the idea of putting this on the ballot. But from a logistical standpoint of hitting these steps and getting this timeline done, it's perfectly doable.
Okay, I mean, I would like for us to see it done as quickly as possible, just because of feedback that we get from our citizens saying, we've got this big piece of land out there, we haven't done anything yet. And this would go a long way. And I think the timing is right for it. And I look to JG and Paul for guidance on that. Am I correct?
Well, so when y'all tell us the time is right, our job is to move it along. And if you tell us the time is right, we can get you on the November ballot.
Okay. Paul, JG, do you have an opinion on that because of the Fraser property?
I think our only issue right now is getting pricing. That's our biggest obstacle. We need to know what it's going to cost, what we can make this bond for. So that's the only issue I see right now. With us getting something at the end of May, it sounds like. I don't want to say it's pushing it, but it sounds like we might be pushing it. So that's the thing I'm concerned about.
Okay.
Yeah, the one piece that we haven't talked about tonight is that financial advisor piece. And we have already engaged their services to start doing some financial modeling for us. We are expecting to hear something back from them within the next 10 to 14 days to have some idea of what, to at least get us started on that financial model to see what the impacts might be. But that could be a timing issue as well.
Okay. Thank you.
And then just to follow up, so in that chart, it had a lot of numbers on it, which correlates to a memo that we received from Bond Counsel. So wanted to start though with this big picture with the flow chart, but we'll get that flow chart and the more detailed memo out to all of you for some further information.
I have a question, Amy, it's Sheila. So I just want to know, as far as this process goes, I was looking at the bubbles and taking notes on the blue bubbles. Thank you for bubbles. I'm visual, so I appreciate those bubbles. But I wanted to ask, how, in addition to obviously public hearings and our meetings, how do we go about educating our community around understanding bonds? Are we going to make a kind of a campaign, if you will, or marketing effort around that so that folks can understand what bonds are more clearly and how they work other than our meetings?
Mm-hmm. Right, good. Thank you for asking that. That is an important component to any bond referendum. Now, under statute, the activities of staff is limited. Staff can give factual information about a bond, but cannot advocate for or against an actual bond. So
And
a lot of that public campaign.
Amy, and that is after the bond has been set. So staff can do anything up to a point up to the initiative being set.
I'll defer to counsel on that one.
But I'm saying once it goes live, you're limited. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, you're correct about that. And you do want to make sure that the narrative from the town is strictly educational. And that's very important. It's not uncommon to see a chamber sort of champion this project, or, you know, another sort of town associate or affiliate. But you just want to make sure that the narrative from the town is very clear.
That's right.
All right, so if a citizen comes up to me and says, Jackie, I hear that there may be a bond referendum because, you know, you just can't keep secrets, then is it okay for me to say I'm in favor of the bond?
Absolutely. As an elected official, you are free to advocate to whatever extent you desire. And that's why we were talking about, you know, it's really just your staff and municipal resources like the copier or the computers, and, you know, that's where we're talking about. It's usually like a chamber or some sort of outside group, or maybe just a group of citizens forms a coalition and becomes that advocacy group to go out and make public meetings and to really make those inroads in the community to spread information, to drum up support, and be that advocate.
And Jackie and Sheila, we've also, the Parks and Rec Board has already discussed this too. So we're already in the process of, if we get going on this and everything else, of, you know, working a group together to actually go out and be able to spread information or everything else that people might need.
Gotcha. I know an economic development group that might be interested in helping with that effort.
Okay.
Thanks.
It really, if I may, I think it comes down to strategy. And Ashley and whoever probably has as much experience as I have, but much of the work is done up to or prior to the initiative. That you're testing, you know what the tolerance level is for the cost, for the bond issue. So when you go into the ballot, when you set the ballot, you have a good idea of where the community stands. Because once it gets set, the fuse is very short to the actual election day. So there is a in my experience, there's a lot of work that needs to happen in up to the ballot setting. So the community is educated, that you've tested, the price, you've tested the initiative, and you recognize what the bond ballot question is going to be. Then the campaign starts. But Ashley, do you share that same sentiment that usually a lot of communities spend time prior to the ballot setting to do the education and such?
Yes, because it's, you can put it out there and they vote no, and you put it out there again, but if that happens, it's, you're not likely to get a yes the second time. You do want to make sure that your community is receptive to it and do as much education beforehand as you can. And I think that's certainly a good strategy for the board to consider. It's don't underestimate that piece of the puzzle.
So Kelly, if we do get it on the ballot for November and it does approve, then what is the time frame for actually having it constructed and built out? And I kind of asked that question based on this question. Is there always going to be a lot of operating cost when you put these type of facilities in? And we talk about two, staff-wise and other costs, just maintenance costs and everything else. Have we considered that in future budgets that we will be able to work through all the costs associated with these two projects?
I'd like to chime in with the bond council thing first while Kelly.
Go ahead.
You do have 90 to 120 days after the referendum to actually issue the bonds. So, and put the money in the bank. So just keep that time frame in mind as well.
So you have to do.
You're saying that as a minimum,
Minimum,
90, minimum of 90 to 120 days. But you have up to 7 to actually issue, 7 years
Yes.
to actually issue the bonds.
So back to your question, I think there is two questions. One is the construction of, the second one is the maintenance of. And to answer your question, no, neither one are in the budget funded in the general fund right now. As far as projected how we would do this on top of the other projects we have also potentially. So I'll be looking very carefully at the design, the 30% design, and I think also McAdams is projecting out the costs of maintenance annually and what that would be compared to the fees that you would get once it's built. And to me, as a manager, I will probably bring to you is all this a recommendation that you would consider not only the capital construction, but some level of maintenance in the initiative, because it can be funded, the maintenance can be funded as part of the initiative also. And that way, then you know that you have the funding available to operate it.
So how's the maintenance funded? I mean, it's not like you're getting a bond, anything, right?
Right. Ashley, do you want to answer that, or is it just it's just a reoccurring dollar amount? Once it's established, you would probably go out and capitalize your bond issue for X years, typically 10. Could be up to 15 or 20, I believe. But then there would be also a piece, and once that's paid off, typically, then that strategy could be that piece associated with the debt would be reduced once the debt's paid. But a board could, if so desired, keep a piece of initiative that would be dedicated and called out in the vote or during the campaign for a period of time up to future boards that would be used for maintenance. Does that make sense?
I think so. So what the I guess the thing that we have to advocate for bonds is the tax increase. That's that's what everybody is interested in. So they would vote on the operation increase too.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't see how our general fund has capacity to build and operate these facilities in today's rates that we have for our revenue structure. So I think that's why the Parks and Rec Advisory Board has said, let's look at an initiative to see how that can be accomplished. Okay, well, with that being said, if there's no further questions, we'll share the more information with you very soon, like tomorrow. And I think JG has this an agenda item for next week with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and I would expect to hopefully report out probably at our budget meeting on the 30th from Paul as to how that went, and we can have further discussion a little bit then at that time.
Quick question. This is Sheila. Is the Parks and Rec Board's meeting, is it broadcast? It is.
JG, you want to talk about that a little bit? How that happens?
Yeah, right. Currently, we're on Zoom, so it's open Zoom link, and I kind of monitor as Robin does for these meetings. I'll monitor the room, and there's like a master mute. And so right now, but it is open, and the Zoom link is linked to every agenda that we put out each month.
But it's not broadcast live. You just have to sign in at the time.
Correct. Yes, ma'am. It's not on YouTube. It's currently just on the Zoom itself.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Ashley, thank you for joining us. I think you are dismissed, so thanks.
Thank you, Ashley.
Bye.
Mayor, the next item is a fairly quick item. Last week when we set the agenda, I thought it might be a trending issue, and Ashley might have had some information on it, but the census is late. We should have had the numbers in February. Most recently, we've heard the draft information is coming in the end of April. Elections in the state and in some municipalities and counties are done by districts, and they use the census information to reapportion the districts who can vote and how the alignment of the districts take place. And as a result, there's some concern in some communities, such as Raleigh and Cary, who have district voting, and others in state, that the apportionment effort's not going to take place, and therefore they will not have valid districts come November vote. And so the state elections commissioner, I believe is the title, has recommended to the legislature to postpone all elections, all November elections, until either March or May of next year. That seemed to be gaining some momentum about a week and a half ago, and most recently it is not. But it was enough that it got the Wake County municipalities together, and I think it came up last night in the mayor's meeting too, and Mayor can probably add a little bit more, that what's the position of the communities in Wake County on this, and do we want to try and maintain a November ballot if there was an effort at the state to change the ballot? I've taken a position that November is pretty crucial to maintain the integrity of our municipal elections, but I have not checked in with you or talked to you about it. And so I wanted to make sure I had a time tonight just to check the pulse of you as a board, if you cared or not. If this came further along at the state level, the Wake County municipalities were considering, well, how much do we need to lobby to make sure that we are able to maintain the November ballot? Again, it appears that is not going to happen at the state level as far as communities who have at-large elections. They're not going to impose their will on our election cycle. But just in case it does or changes, I want to make sure that I have your backing essentially your support to try and make sure that we maintain a position of November if it's meaningful to you all. Mayor, did you have that same conversation as the mayors last night?
Yes, that's kind of the discussion. I think all the towns that were there, we was missing Raleigh and Apex. The towns that can go forth in the November election, all of them,
You're breaking up again, Ronnie.
I don't know. Your Wi-Fi is not good in there, Mayor.
I'm sorry. Is this better?
Well, your face is frozen.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Are you good? No. But just move on.
You're in and out. No, you're out.
Go for it. Try again one more time. No. So I think he was saying what I said. and if there's technical issues, we could try and get that fixed. But if not, hopefully he'll come back and correct me. But does anybody have any strong feeling one way or the other on this question?
I mean, being up for election in November, I would like to see it in November.
I
Me
agree
too.
with Paul,
Me too.
and I'd like April's opinion on that too, since we're
I
election.
agree. I agree with November.
And we don't have districts, so I mean, I don't see the point in us not doing it. I like maintaining our terms and our times.
Did my connection come
I
back?
agree.
A
I
little
agree.
bit. Try ahead. Go ahead, Mayor. Try.
Yeah, you guys look frozen, but yeah, I was saying that all the municipalities that were present that can hold elections in November was together and saying let's do it in November. The two towns we know that cannot do it in November is Raleigh and Cary. They would love to, but it appeared that they will not be able to meet that time schedule to be able to do it in November. So they're looking at probably as late as March of next year.
Okay, good. Well, I would say then I have a good direction, and if something comes up on this, I will keep you informed. Otherwise, plan on November unless you hear otherwise. So thank you for the direction. The next item, JG is going to lead, and it's about the Public Works facility. We want to make sure that we're still good to go on the land purchase that we've been discussing. And then also just briefly review that once purchased, what our transition plan is on the new property for temporary site. As we know, we'll probably have to kind of evacuate our current site if all things go on with Cobblestone Development and their site later this summer. So JG's devised a plan to kind of transition over to the new site, new land upon closing and purchasing. So JG, do you want to lead this discussion a little bit further?
Yes, sir. I think you kind of summed it up really well right there, Kelly. What we're really looking for after this is kind of a recommendation to schedule a resolution to authorize town manager to close on NCDOT property in April. To get there, we have had conversations and agreed upon price with NCDOT to purchase this little over 15 acres, and it's at the corner of East Junk Street and US 401 bypass. So we've had positive discussions with them. Their approvals are moving through the NCDOT process, and they are confident we'll be able to close in April on the property. So again, we've done the feasibility of this property, and as you recall, this is also part of the strategic plan. One of the key focuses in planned investment in the purchase of land has been budgeted in the current budget.
Town attorney, it's kind of interesting. We got an update from DOT today. And they did everything, all the approvals have been made at DOT. So everything's ready to go. And it's as simple as them carrying a deed to closing right now. There's no form or nothing. They just need to know they have somebody there sitting across from the table at closing that has the authority to close and bring a check. So that's what the resolution would essentially state on April 6th, is that you would have, the board agrees to purchase the land and give authority for the town manager to close.
Okay, let's talk about that. That'll be, I think the logistics of that are important, and certainly we trust the DOT to deliver what they promised to deliver. But at the same time, I know that you and I will want to make sure that we've covered all the normal diligence we would in purchasing land from anyone.
Right. So that was the, I'll share with you the real briefing I got today on the process. So you'll and I talk. So
yeah, every seller is always ready to tell you they're happy to hand you a piece of paper if you hand them a big check. I always worry about folks who want to hand me property.
Okay.
Kelly, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
For JG, when I look at that piece of land as it was outlined in our agenda, are you comfortable that at the ingress and egress will be sufficient for what you want to do? I know we've got people using part of that driveway that has been there for a long time. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. So once we, we'll do an official survey of the property as well, and that'll really determine where the driveway is. But we've kind of, with our engineers, come up with a plan that would incorporate widening the driveway to meet our needs. For Public Works, DOT feels comfortable, as we've talked about at length, about, full access, but, right in, right out may be the best point. But full access could be a possibility with NCDOT for just a Public Works. And then what we've done is kind of come straight out with their driveway to tie into our entrance point as well, to give ingress and egress to the property owner as well.
Okay, I don't like right in and right out from that point, because that means a lot of what you're doing in town, you've got to go around, you got to go down and do a U-turn to come back, or you got to get out on the bypass and come in from that direction. But the people that are encroaching on the property that have been there for a long time, are they aware of what we're going to do?
Yes, sir. We have made contact with the resident of the property, and at this time, they didn't have any questions or concerns at this time.
Okay, I would like to see a curb cut sufficient enough for us where we've got plenty of room without, and also in this particular situation, I'm not in favor of a right in, right out if we can get by with it. But again, I don't think that's a breaking point.
Hey, JJ, how concrete of a statement do we have that we can do a full access for Public Works?
That's been the conversations that we have had with DOT to this point. We haven't worked anything like a final, this is guaranteed, but we do have, their word that as far as, like, if we put a, commercial, or if you went with, a park or something like that, it would definitely be right in, right out. But with a limited access that we have to a Public Works facility, they feel comfortable with giving a full access at this time.
And we did meet on site with them too.
Okay.
Can we get a statement, a written statement prior to closing, Kelly, to make sure?
Yeah, I think, remind me, JG, did we got something from them? I can't remember what, but I'll verify that, Mayor, and provide you all what we got as soon as
That's a good point, Ronnie. I'd like to see that in writing too.
Yeah, I would think it would be a part of the agreement. In this DOT.
Okay. JG, you want to share a screen and go through your preliminary use of that land? Do you know how to share a screen?
Yes, sir. Let's see if I do it right. Everyone seeing a screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So on this right here, this kind of give you an idea of our transition plan for this property. One of the main thoughts to staff is relocating and how many times do we have to move. With purchasing this land, if we're able to close on it in April, the transition will be a little bit smoother for town staff to move all of our equipment to one time to the permanent site. versus splitting it up amongst different sites throughout town and renting additional storage units. So that's kind of our thought process, is it's more of a one-time move. Now, this would be a real temporary solution, but it gives us the option. So right here, we're showing a mobile office trailer. That would be something we would have to go through town board for approval to allow a mobile office. We do know that it's been allowed in the past when Rolesville Middle School and High School were constructed. We do know that mobile trailers were allowed on site for those. So we would be asking town board for that permission to allow a mobile trailer while Public Works is being constructed. We're trying to be, useful of funds as well. So whatever we construct will be something that would be used in the future. So if you look up here towards the top of the screen, it'll be kind of an image, something similar to this. There's a lot of different design options, but this was a quick one that we grabbed off the internet. These are your bulk storage bays. So when Public Works is completely built out, you would have different materials, your stone, gravel, sand, mulch, those different types of materials that we would store on site in bulk. Even with a covered area, that would give us an option to at least do small minor repair work. So if we got to work on a mower, change blades on a mower, it gives them a covered area to at least do some of that. It allows us to store equipment in a covered area as well while we're doing construction on the facility. So that was our thought process there. And that's what this pad here is for your bulk material. And then for storage, we were looking at the ideas, and we talked with engineers and architects, and kind of came up with the ideas of these containers, like shipping containers for storage. As we know, we have several storage buildings already that we're utilizing for holiday lights and other town materials. This would give us an opportunity to move those out of storage and into these places to save some money on what we're spending on storage fees. And also give us the opportunity for everything that we're storing currently indoors for Public Works, we can move to these containers as well for storage. So again, we're not having stuff stored throughout town in different locations and different storage buildings. And so that was kind of the concept on that one there. So this up here would be a permanent structure. Once again, the building's constructed, it would return to the bulk storage for its main intent. So this kind of gets us in the interim, because we don't know 100% sure of the timeline for Cobblestone, but this gives us a plan when they're ready to start construction, and we do need to relocate. It gives us an opportunity to relocate. That's a reasonable cost that's a reusable cost. So we're not just building things that will eventually be moved or tore down. There'll be permanent structures in the future as well.
JG, I just recognized this. This shows the location up closer up front, but we're still analyzing. It may set back further. There we go. Also, so.
Correct. We kind of laid this out, and then everything here is movable. It really depends on, we'd really want to do this on our final design. That way it's in the exact location where it should be. And again, that's the bulk storage. And then in the mobile construction trailer, again, that's really flexible where we put it. We do have quotes if we want to do self-contained water and sewer on site, where we don't have to tap into water and sewer at this time while we're doing construction, or we also have quotes if we want to tap in to either of those as well. So we do have those options as well with the mobile trailer offices.
So JG, the 80 by 100 building, you didn't speak of that. I missed it. Is that something that would be done later, or?
Right, that would be the construction of the permanent building. So, it'll take time to get the engineer plans complete, get through the review process, permitting, and actually constructing. So these options here that's our temporary office is on the permanent site, but it's our temporary solution while we build this building here. And we're still working on what that final dimension is. This was that first sketch that you saw last fall, back in October when it was completed. And we're working towards and should be close to wrapping up that final feasibility with the architect as well, and what our size and layout would actually look like of the facility.
I have a question. JG, you said that your hopes are to move it once and not move it again. Is that am I correct in?
Correct, yes, ma'am. So if we close on this property for Public Works facility, and we don't go there temporarily, we may have to go to 3 or 4 different locations where we store equipment at one spot. We have storage in other places and office space somewhere else. This will put Public Works all at one move. Instead of going to temporary storage, you're going to a permanent location. So then it's just relocating on site versus throughout town.
Okay, because so you would just have it wherever you have access to right now, since the roads aren't built. You'll just set them out there to wherever you can get to them. And then once the roads are built, then you'll just move them further back on the property.
With the storage, once we get the physical layout and we get where we're going to put, your bulk storage, that's when we'll build the bulk storage, go ahead and build that. And that's what would be kind of our recovered area for small maintenance repair work. Then a bulk storage, again, yes, that's more flexible and movable. In the mobile office trailer, you want to put that somewhere that's really feasible. If we tie into water and sewer, we probably want to have a little bit closer, so we're not running that long of a line. But if we're due with the potable water and in the holding tanks, we can move it further back if we needed to. So it gives us those options of feasibility of what we need to do and what we have to do. But yes, ma'am, it would all be on one site, so it's a one-time move of all the equipment.
I guess
I
I
have a
just
quick
didn't
question.
understand how you're going to get it to the back of the property if the roads aren't built yet.
Right, we'd probably come in and just put a stone base driveway in
Okay.
as a temporary
Gotcha, okay.
solution.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I get you want to keep everything in one place, but was the farm ever an option for you to put everything in one place there?
It is, but you're a couple miles north of town when most of our work is done, just south of that location where a majority of their work's being completed. And then security of it is kind of remote and out there right now by itself. So just the security of equipment and things like that would be another small concern.
But even with all that, wouldn't that be cheaper than buying the mobile office, putting up the whatever wall you just mentioned? Wouldn't it still be cheaper and you could still do other things to protect it, cameras or what
Yes,
have
ma'am.
you?
Yes, ma'am. I see your points. The structure here for the bulk storage, that'd be a permanent, that's something we're going to have to build regardless. We're saying go ahead and build it now and utilize it. So it wouldn't be just a structure that we build and wouldn't use in the future. But we have talked internally about using the farm as well.
Right. So JG, let me add to Michelle. This is a public works facility that could be expanded in the future also. So the farm has never been designed to have a public works facility. It's been designed to have a facility to maintain the park out there. So this will be a different level of equipment. This will probably be this site, and this, I bet, is a 5 to 7 year, and then you'll be expanding again on this site potentially with more public works needs. So what inhibits the farm that's for recreation. This is for maintenance considerations.
No, Kelly, I'm sorry. I'm not saying to do it forever, but I'm saying in the
Oh.
interim to do something like, instead of investing this money,
Oh,
all of this right now, could
well,
you just temporarily use the farm and then progress to this?
I don't know if it makes a difference because the mobile office is going to be rented, right, JG?
It'd be the same need out there as well because of the condition of the house it's in.
Oh, you couldn't use the house then?
It would just spend just more money in renovation just to make one office out of
Okay.
it than you would. Yes, ma'am.
And the same thing with that dilapidated shed that's over there as well. That looked like it was in pretty bad condition anyway. So that would be the same case. You frozen? Oh.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, there's sheds out there. We do have some. And again, we also have the agreement with the farmer out there to maintain a lot of that property as well. So like you said, it is an option. And then that's a ride in, ride out as well. So you have to go all the way up to 96 every morning and turn around and come back into town to do town business. So we'd probably lose a good 20, 30 minutes every day in travel time, getting around and just moving equipment around.
And JG, don't you think this is probably a 1 year deal? I mean,
that's
our
my
goal
hope.
is
Yes,
to-
sir.
our
I
goal
guess
is to
that's
have
what
this-
I'm thinking. Is it more than 1 year or what was the 5 years that you just mentioned?
Oh, for a permanent facility, Michelle. I'm sorry. I thought you were
Okay.
talking about a permanent facility.
Correct. Yes, sir. That's our goal is to keep moving with, as expedient as we can with this project. We've got budgeted to purchase and we can go ahead and get started on the design of the facility and then get to, I think, we hope to break ground as soon as we can once we get the site plan, get it through the TRC, through town board for site approval. And then we're ready to start. We also have it budgeted in the CIP in the town budget as well. So that's something else we'll be talking about on the 30th as well as the funding of this facility.
JG, I have one question. If memory serves me correctly, a corner of this is in the watershed. what I understand, but which greatly limits your pervious impervious ratios. Do you have enough pervious to do what you want to do in that on that whole project?
Yes, sir. Let me see if I can pull that up.
Have you checked to make sure that we're not going to be limited with the pervious impervious ratios?
Are you able to see the map right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so this blue line here and the slashes, that is the watershed area. And we have consulted with our engineer and they feel very confident that everything we're doing keeps us well within our allocated use of the in the watershed, as far as, 12% impervious coverage.
Okay, and we can run water and sewer into it.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Yes, sir.
all. That's fine for me. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
JJ, you may have mentioned, but we will be leasing that office trailer, mobile office.
Correct. Yes, sir.
How much is that?
So I got two different quotes here for one. I got 6 month and 1 year, but the 1 year quote's probably the more realistic time you get through the permitting process and putting the shovel and actually constructing. 1 year without water and sewer is about $14,000 a year right now, and include water and holding tanks for water and waste, and that's with like weekly. That's about $22,000 a year.
Oh my God, so it's 22 and 14?
No, it's one or the other. 14 is with no utilities provided. That means we'd have to put those ourselves. If we did want to use holding tanks for water and sewer, or water and waste, solid waste, it'd be about 22,000. And those are kind of ballpark numbers. That's what we're looking at right now. Is we wanted to cover ourselves on both ends and see, what was the best way, because, maybe cheaper to just tap into water. We're right there at the water, go and tap into that. And same thing with sewer. You may want to wait with the sewer and wait till you build your facility, so you're not running, one line here and then having to come another line off there. So there's a couple options we're looking into.
So you're talking about $1,400 a month or $1,200 a month, something like that.
Yeah, 12 times 12 is 14.4. So you're right, depending just the trailer.
Yeah, and that's probably not bad.
No, it's not bad at all.
No. You probably couldn't get a building for that somewhere.
Okay, so sensing we're kind of ready to move forward, you'll see a resolution on April 6th board meeting, and then we can talk further if JG has more information on May 30th or March 30th at the budget meeting about where we are on the actual facility costs. Okay, ready to go on?
Stop sharing.
Good. All right, Robin, can you bring in Mr. Kenyon?
Hello.
Kenyon, how are you?
Hey, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes. So the next item, let me get up my memo, is coming from Cobblestone Crossings of Rolesville LLC. Last week, Mr. Burnham requested to the town staff that they had an interest in closing in April. I guess it was 2 weeks ago. And we met last week as a group, and the town attorney reviewed the purchase agreement, and I will ask him to re-review that with us. But in the memo I provided you, the appropriate sections were referred to. Two parts of section 7, 7A, 7, and 7B, which outline the conditions that must be met in addition to others, but these are the key provisions for closing. And it's been our position that was the town board's intent when added those provisions that closing would take place after site plan approval. Where we are today, that approval process may not take place for at least another 3 months. And as you can see by Kenyon's request letter, he's requesting a closing by mid-April. So we talked through that and said, really, the only way we can do that is make sure that you as a board are good with that. Dave can talk about what needs to be done to make that happen, if you're amenable to that. But the reality is, we are not going to. We just forwarded traffic impact analysis to DOT yesterday. So they are starting their review. We do have the site plan and we're reviewing it. And just to be clear to the board, there isn't anything new that you haven't already seen on that. So that site plan review could go relatively fast, but really we haven't had a technical review of it, really. We've just kind of looked at it from a perspective of, here's a site plan that you all agreed that you wanted to try and attempt to reach as part of the economic development agreement and the purchasing contract. So we're now just getting into the technical review of that site plan. So in order to meet the request, we have to take some actions. So maybe we should start first with, what do you think, Dave Kenyon, explaining why he needs it and the request, or do you want to explain what needs to happen and why we're talking about this?
I think Kenyon can speak. You've laid it out very well.
Okay, Mayor, if you're okay, let's hear from Kenyon and his request and what he put in his letter.
Sure thing. And thank you, Mr. Town Manager and members of the board for having me back. Certainly appreciate you guys having me on to discuss this. In short, I do believe the letter does a good job at laying it out, but it's always good to reiterate those points. KDM has secured funding for this project to close on the land through a Congress asset exchange program from the sale of another property elsewhere in the United States. As a result of that, the money is lined up, and in order to take advantage of that Congress asset exchange program, the money needs to be placed prior to April 19th of 2021. In addition to that, the institutional financing for this project, we have been able to agree to terms with a lender by the name of Trez Capital in the area that has requested that we close on this project prior to committing to their financing. Close on the land prior to committing to their financing. It is under the current financing climate, it is slightly difficult to get large retail centers financed, and we've been able to secure a very amenable deal with this financing institution, and would like to make sure that we keep that deal in order and don't lose that to time. So those basically lay out the two primary reasons, and I'm happy to answer any questions that go along with that.
I have a question for our attorney. Is he going to speak first? Thank you, Kenyon, for that.
Of course.
Jackie, you're muted.
I am here.
Okay. April, I'm sorry, you want to go first?
Dave, are you going to speak, or can I just go ahead and ask my question?
You can ask your question, and then I'll know the topic.
Okay. If this were to happen, how could this negatively affect the town? And if so, what would that look like?
Sure. So the provision, which is 7B in the purchase agreement, is something special that the board added to this purchase agreement as part of the negotiations. It's not something that I normally see in a commercial transaction. It was something I believe Commissioner Wilson had identified as a peculiar feature of this transaction, because we were not independent sellers who were going to go our separate ways after closing on the sale of our property. We were still going to be the town. We still had a obligation with regard to approvals. We had incentives. So in a casual way, we might call this a partnership that was going forward. Most sellers in a commercial setting don't care. They take their cash as soon as they can get it, and they take their money and go elsewhere. That is not the case for the town. The town has an obligation to the citizens, and we're going to have future interactions with our buyer. Because of that, the thought was, let's make sure that the buyer has made it through all of their approvals, so we know that everything has been nailed down and there's no, or at least a reduced risk of there being any surprises and things going sideways for the buyer. This was a creative risk mitigation tool that was added to the contract. The board can waive that provision and allow the town to close, or the town can say, well, we want to keep that protection in place and stick to the terms of the contract. I don't know that I necessarily have any guidance for you on which to choose. It is purely a policy decision. On one side, you will certainly get the money sooner. And to the extent we believe that the buyer is ready to perform, we would hope that they're able to perform faster and get this project kicked off in an agreeable business climate. At the same time, we're taking some of the strings off. We're taking the leash off. We're letting the kid go to high school rather than just be in middle school where we take them every day. There's more independence now that the developer will have because they have title to the property. I don't know how that plays into the board members' risk assessment. Again, it was a bit of a unique feature in this contract. I can appreciate the challenge that the buyer has as someone who represents commercial buyers. They have an opportunity to use the funds from the sale of another property to reinvest in this site under a 1031 exchange. And those things are have hard deadlines for the reinvestment. You cannot get an extension. So if the time passes, that opportunity will go away.
But that doesn't stop us from requiring the site plan, obviously, before any construction begins. Even
Well,
with
that would be the case
if-
for anyone. They certainly cannot begin anything until they have their site plan in place and their construction drawings. All of that would be required in any circumstance.
Gotcha.
Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Kenyon is taking a greater risk than we are because of the 1031 exchange. My only question was the last paragraph in his letter says, since the town has made clear its concerns regarding site work starting prior to a site plan approval issued by the board, we would recommend adding a new clause to the town's repurchase agreement option, allowing them to exercise said option on the site in the event that Cobblestone commences the demolition of the subject property's buildings prior to the site plan approval. What does that mean, Dave?
This was a suggestion by the Cobblestone team on their own initiative. There is a repurchase option available for the town in this deal. That was another creative feature in this. If the developer does not go vertical with their development within, I believe, 16 months of closing, I believe is the date, the town would have the opportunity to repurchase the property back from the buyer at the price we paid for it.
And if he has taken down the buildings that he needs to take down to make his project work, in my opinion, that is a plus for us. Because if we had to use it or sell it later, I view these buildings as useless anyway.
Right. So the repurchase agreement would be satisfied once the buyer goes vertical. There was a concern expressed throughout the process, even involving the prior board. And that was a concern that we might sell the 11 acres and then either see one of two bad outcomes. One would be nothing happens. Nothing happens. We've sold the property and we never see anything develop there, and our downtown redevelopment initiative stalls. The second possibility that was seen as a negative is even worse, and that would be that the property is cleared, and then that's all that happens. And we can remember those instances happening in 2008, 2009, where land was cleared, but nothing ever was improved. It was only a clearing permit that was issued. So this would be an opportunity for the town to repurchase in the event that a clearing had taken place, but no footings or foundations had been put in on the first commercial building. Those were those two triggers. The developer is now offering to essentially double dog promise not to clear the property until all of the permits are done.
I have a question. I'm sorry, Jackie, when you're done.
Okay. Again, when I look at this thing as a whole, I see Kenyon being at more risk than we are in this. And if it was cleared for some reason, we don't believe that's going to happen, then we've got land to sell that we take back that's already been cleared, because that's what a developer is going to do. So looking from a developer's point of view, I'm okay with this.
Okay.
But that's my opinion.
Well, I have a concern in regards to the site plan. So what if the site plan comes back, meets all the criteria that it's supposed to meet, but it's just not. Okay, so wait, so this is quasi judicial, right?
It is.
So when they come back with the site plan, if there's something on that site plan that we feel is not in the best interest of the town, but they meet all the requirements, there's nothing we can really do at that point, correct?
So in a quasi-judicial hearing, you have the objective requirements that are going to be determined by the staff. And then you have the more subjective requirements that need to be determined by the board on the basis of evidence. So the site plan would be required to be approved if all of the objective requirements were met and all of the subjective determinations of the findings of fact that you need to make are supported by material, competent, and substantial evidence. That second piece is certainly a matter of weighing, like a jury, of the information that you have received. What you may not do is just decide, I don't really like it. You no longer have a policy option to say no.
And I only ask that because I know that some of their plans have come back with changes after changes, pre-site plan. And that would be a concern for me, that we end up having to say yes to something that we did not anticipate having it built out this way.
So it is possible, if I run through the analysis, and I think I know what you're referring to, Commissioner Medley, it is possible that Cobblestone or a successor to Cobblestone may have a different vision for the site. One that does not look substantially similar to the site plan that was originally shown to us, or I should say, the one most recently reviewed by the board. In that circumstance, that would be a violation of the economic development agreement, and whomever was now the property owner or the developer would need to be willing to go forward without any financial incentives, because they would have defaulted under the agreement.
So there,
I
it
would say
sounds like
that's
there are
unlikely.
safety measures built in for us into
The
this
guidance
agreement
that the
against
staff
this.
was given for the past 2 years has been to mitigate the town's risk. I think I have probably mentioned more than once to many parties, publicly or privately, that I wasn't sure that in the world of commercial real estate, I could eliminate all the risk. I can't. There's always a risk, but we try to be creative with the assistance and guidance of the experience on the board, particularly to cover as many bases as we could to be a sophisticated seller in a partnership.
And Dave, I
Mhm.
think you've done a great job of that. And when I look at the development agreement, I feel like you've covered as many bases as we can. All commercial deals are different. All commercial deals have elements of risk.
I get that, but it's just, I don't know, I just have a feeling about this because it's always been, this is going on 2 years, right? I really thought it was 3. And things happen where you have to change and in order to meet the requirements of what's needed, whether financially or by policy. And I just feel that this here project has always come up with changes that we've had to spend time, quite a bit of time on trying to come to a mutual agreement. And now we have this, which is something that we've never done before. You know, we've never had to basically put the cart before the horse in order to get something moving forward. And that's what scares me.
What was the original date, closing date? I don't recall. Anybody?
I thought it was within that first year that they came to us. I really
Madam
did.
Commissioner, I will look that up very quickly. I believe it was 30 days after receipt of all approvals with an outside deadline that we hoped would never come into play. That would be my guess as to how it was drafted, but it has been a while since I looked. But I'll look right now.
That is true, Dave. It's 4A. No later than 30 days.
And I just feel we're at the final hour and then this comes up. This had to have been known before now.
Ms. Medley, if I can touch on that, this was a recent development on our end. We have been in negotiations with Trez Capital for I'd say the better part of a month now, going back and forth and establishing the institutional financing with them. It was about to Mr. Arnold's point here, about three weeks ago, they issued a letter of credit to us and a term sheet specifying that in order for us to keep the deal that they had put on the table, we had to close on the property by mid-April. And that was, we had been in negotiations with them for a couple of months and had just kind of punched in the final terms just a few weeks ago, and then immediately came to staff to discuss the updates in our situation as it pertains to that.
So you're saying only a couple of weeks ago that you sat down about your financing?
No, so a couple of weeks ago, we were able to finalize our financing package. So we have been working on that package for a few months now. As I mentioned earlier, getting loans to build new retail space right now is slightly more difficult than it was when we started the process, understandably, due to the implications of the pandemic. We have been able to put together a favorable package, again, with Trez Capital, with the stipulation that we close in April to keep that term sheet good, as we would say.
And I understand with COVID and the requirements are a lot more strict. I just feel uncomfortable because to me, again, like I said, it seems like something always comes up. But I mean, I look forward to seeing your project come to fruition. I really do. But I just want to make sure that we're not stepping into something that we actually cannot get out. Our only means of getting out is if you default. I mean, I'm sure that that's not something you want to do, nor is it something we want to be a part of. But that's my only concern. My reservation is the timing. We need you all to do this so we can do that. And this is a big step.
I guess, oops, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I understand your concerns, Michelle. Appreciate your concerns. I do think that we all know how financing can be, even just buying a house, how financing can be. We were buying a townhouse for our daughter in Charlotte, and we went through some of this whole financing stuff, and we had some last minute stuff come up like literally like 3 days before closing.
I believe it.
So things definitely happen. But I do think the attorney, at least from listening to Dave speak, it sounds like there are some built-in safeguards for us. None of us can predict the future. And I do think some of the holdup, because it does seem, I think I said to Kelly, it feels like this has been 3 years in the making too. I know the UDO rewrite, that was a big part of it too. So they kind of came in at that time when we were starting to rewrite things, which we needed to do. So they were kind of put on hold from that as well. But I do think what Dave expressed makes me feel a bit more comfortable.
I agree with Sheila, and I'm in agreement to allow them to move forward as his letter requests.
And I will reiterate again that your town attorney has done a fantastic job binding us up 10 ways to Tuesday. We are very well controlled over the way we're allowed to proceed on this thing. And I would say he's done a really fantastic job building protections in for y'all's end in that regard.
So Mayor, tonight's not the night for an action. I think sensing, and again, it's okay, we don't know where you're gonna land, but it gives us a chance to develop a resolution. Is that what we want to do, Dave, of some sort for the April 6th meeting? And then obviously you can have further deliberations as a board on the resolution. Is that what you anticipate, Dave?
I was not expecting a resolution on this. This is a question that is coming back to the board because this was a major policy concern. And it's an important provision in the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And Kelly and I believe that this was beyond the authority of something where we could make the call.
Right.
So I don't know that a resolution is necessary, as we've already resolved to sell the property under the contract. But if Kelly and Dave have the authority to move forward with closing, we need that vote and blessing and know that we can move full steam ahead.
On April 6th, right?
That's correct.
Hmm.
And that gives the board time to consider all that's been presented here this evening.
Oh, I hadn't heard you say anything. Any comments from your perspective?
Well, and I want to cover the citizens most, but I also want to ask, does April 6th give the contractor time enough to finalize everything on their side if they do get an approval from us?
It should.
Yes. Yeah.
Kenyon, Kenyon, we can expeditiously move to closing, right?
Yeah, yeah. The funds are tendered. They are with our escrow agent, and the money's there, and we are ready to close the day after April 6th. Really, if that's what's necessary, we can move quite quickly in that regard. The funding is lined up.
Okay.
Did your traffic impact study come back already?
Yeah, yes, it did. The initial draft of it did, and I believe you guys have sent that off to DOT. Kelly?
Correct.
Yes.
Right. Just went to DOT yesterday.
Mm.
April, I think I heard an early question from you. Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I don't. I'm trusting that things are built into this contract to help us. And it seems from what I'm hearing that he has a lot to lose as well if this doesn't happen.
Yes, we do. Quite a lot.
Yeah, so my biggest concern is what that would do to the town if something were to go off in left field. I think somebody said something along those lines. So my question was answered.
Okay, well, we'll put it on as a regular agenda item on April 6th, and Kenyon, be prepared to come in person again. And board, if you have any further questions, look up Dave, myself, or Kenyon, and we'll have it scheduled for April 6th for your final consideration. Well,
The only question I got, and maybe we can just do it on the 6th. Jackie brought up that question about the other clause of change has to do with buildings and stuff. Is there any more discussion we need to have on that tonight, or we'll just save that for the next meeting? Because it's more, sounds like to me, it was more than just a question to vote to close on the contract. It's something other change that Jackie brought up.
That was the last paragraph in regard to demolishing buildings. But once again, in my opinion, that doesn't hurt us at all.
So you good. Thank you, Jackie. So Kelly, you're planning to make that part of the approval that will be voted on the 6th?
Your town attorney is just going to add that to the repurchase agreement. If the other side offers it, I take it.
Okay. So really, just to be clear, what would be clear, the decision we're gonna have on the 6th is whether to expedite the sale until mid-April, right? Is that what the decision you asking the board to do, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay. Simple
So I have a
question.
question. How soon before you all have a site plan, Kenyon?
I believe the site plan is currently in for review with the planning department. So it is underway right now. Site plan review is.
I think it's going probably in front of the planning board. Depends, April or May. And then once it gets out of planning board, it comes to you.
That's it for my questions. You all heard my concerns, so.
I have a general question for Kenyon, since we have you on the call. And if I'm not to ask this question, stop me, someone. So how's it going as far as marketing the property?
It's going very well, actually. Yeah, we have, am I allowed to answer that? I want to make sure I'm not stepping on anyone's toes.
I didn't see the attorney pipe up, so I think we're okay.
Right, okay, it's going very well, actually. Yeah, we're receiving quite a bit of preliminary interest from some corporate partners, along with some local entrepreneurs, in addition to some previous local entrepreneurs, restaurateurs, and such that we've worked with at our Lafayette Village locations and elsewhere. I am hoping to have the place fully leased up before construction starts. Obviously, I've been told that's a lofty expectation, but I think we're going to have quite a few leases coming in very shortly here, actually.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
Yep, it is going well, going very well, which makes me feel a lot better. It's part of part of my process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
Mayor, that's all we have on the agenda. Is there anything further? I have a couple announcements, but other than that, is there anything else, the board?
I thought we had a 5th item. I don't have it in front of me here.
Yeah, setting the date for.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yep. Everybody, Robin did a good job of gathering information, taking polls, and it looks like the date, Robin, is 6 p.m., April 15th for Chamber of Commerce in-person meeting. We just want to confirm that, make sure thumbs up from everybody, and we'll confirm that back with them. Everybody's good with that date?
What was that, the 15th?
Tax day.
That's good. I think tax day is being extended anyway, but yes.
That is probably kind of, I call that the annual meeting. Agenda has not been yet set, so if you, as we get closer, if you have an agenda item or two as a board, we might even talk about that in the 6th. But that's the date. We'll book it and be ready to publicize it.
Is it virtual or in person?
In person.
In person,
Person. Gotcha.
at their request.
Sounds good.
Kelly, I have a quick question as well. So I'm thinking it was Rolesville who said this. Are we looking hopefully to maybe open up in May in regards to bigger, or what's the word? Like opening the community center, opening.
Yeah,
Or-
so I
yeah.
think on April 6th, we should talk about that. I'll have a better idea. I had 3 weeks ago given a target date June 1st.
Okay.
Now with
Maybe-
things moving along and progressing, it could be earlier, but I know that we've set our plans for June 1st,
Okay.
which would be essentially full opening. Back, lobby. In fact, I've turned it over to the team, and one of the ideas is that we might even have an open house on a Saturday of farmer's market at Town Hall, because we've never really done anything formally to show off the lobby or the effort that we did at Town Hall. So I think one of the planning items is that we would probably spend a Saturday morning and prior to that and kind of allow the public to come in and take a look at what we did and such. So, but right now, June 1st is the date, Michelle.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I thought I had heard that, but
Mm-hmm.
fingers are crossed.
Mm-hmm. And then I think the question on April 6th we'll want to ask is, where are you all on these type of meetings? Do you want another one of these in April, a month from now, or are you ready to go back fully in person, or how? So we'll just kind of monitor, but that'll probably be an item we want to discuss.
Okay.
Okay.
Totally off topic, but I have one more question. And it may have been in the update for the FYI and I missed it. What's going on with Redford? I know I ask this question like every other month. Redford Place,
With
office
King?
building, the office
Oh,
building.
the office building.
So they have told us that they're getting closer. And last we saw, they were had information out for attempting to get a lease for the first floor. So that was a solicitation they had out there. But we've been told that any day now, we'll see construction drawings and have a final meeting for construction. I don't have a date yet.
And is that the normal process to get the leases before you even put a shovel in the ground?
Sometimes.
Somebody educate me, educate me.
Sometimes it's the
you need
norm.
that to get financing.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
I think that's Jackie's hit it. Final finances is dependent upon a lease in hand.
The lease in hand, gotcha. All right, at least the sofa's gone.
Yeah. Kelly, the memo about the swearing in of the chief at
Yes.
the parking lot of 121 Redford Place. Where is
Yes. So so thank you. I'll send you out a calendar invite. It looks like the weather could be passed at 2 o'clock on Friday, but we're going to follow our protocol that's in place. And so we're going to do it outdoor in the parking lot.
in the park?
At the Redford
Oh,
parking.
the baseball parking lot.
That's correct.
At where?
At the parking lot at
Where
the
the
baseball
concession stand.
complex,
Oh,
sorry.
okay, okay. All
At
right.
the what complex?
where the baseball fields are on Redford.
You know where the concession
Oh.
stand is?
Okay.
Okay,
Right
now,
in there,
now,
right?
now I know. Okay, thank you.
That'll allow hopefully plenty of parking, outdoor ceremony, so on and so forth.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Pretty
Does
quick.
Does the outdoor ceremony mean food?
Nope.
I didn't think so, but I just want to be sure. I'll bring my lunch bag.
2 o'clock.
I eat late. I ate lunch at 4 o'clock today.
It's a celebration, a social gathering, and leaving.
Gotcha.
So
Cool.
it's not.
All
Motion
right.
to adjourn.
Yep.
I second.
Oh, wait a minute, and then don't forget.
I'm sorry.
your-
I'm
You
sorry.
have your
Jackie,
next
me.
gathering in person is March 30th at 6 p.m. It's our budget work session. I think Amy will be sending out more information soon on food. So this will be our first kind of larger in person because we'll include department heads. We will televise it so that the public can watch, but we are going to restrict kind of public in to the setting because of the size consideration. But we'll have it televised March 30th, 6 p.m.
And that, I had it virtual, but is this the one that starts at 6 o'clock?
Yes, it'll be in
But it's not
person.
but it's not
Nope.
virtual. Okay,
That's right.
okay.
And get a good night's sleep the night before.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
And it's board and
it's-
staff.
Yes.
In
It'll
the
be
park-
it'll be full of information.
Okay.
All righty.
All right,
Right now.
anything else? I would just close by thanking everybody for participating tonight. Appreciate all the work the staff put in. Great presentations, great delivery. So
Yes.
thank you staff for that, really do. We are opening things back up, hopefully. With the Mayor Association meeting last night, we discussed the annual ball event at the Mudcat Stadium. We're really hopeful that we'll be able to do that event this year. It looks like it's possible that we might. We may have to limit the number of people that can come, but I'm hoping it's more than just, a handful. But we will have more information on that probably about this time next month, and let you guys know about that. I'm really excited about, being able to get out and do those type things again. Right now, I think, Kelly, you can correct me wrong, but I think we are still planning to have the fireworks display in July. Some towns have made a decision not to do it. I think Wake Forest is going to do their virtual one again, like they did last year. I think if we can make it work live, I think that would be a good thing. And it's something that we probably need to really start talking about in the next month or two to make sure that we have a plan for July if we're going to go with it, or if we not going to have people come in to do it virtual somehow. But
I think, well, unless you all tell me otherwise, pretty soon we're ready to go with the fireworks. We probably won't do an event per se, a gathering, but certainly community celebration, but not try to impose a formal event of some sort. But
right.
Certainly, I think we think everything's ready to go by then, that you could have that type of a celebration. So.
And can I just say to that, if we're not able to do that, I do want to run something past you, Kelly and Ronnie. And it's been done, I think, in Raleigh and someplace else, but we can talk about it off screen tomorrow, maybe. That was one thing. Oh man, it's getting late because I forgot the second one.
While you're thinking, can I add something about the vaccine real quick?
That's what it was. That's what it was. Okay.
I know that we're all eligible as elected officials and working in the public sector. I know that we're all eligible, but if you have family members who can't get in because of the grouping, which I think they've expanded, Walgreens, I don't know if you all know this, but Walgreens, like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if they have extra vaccines left, they will give those shots to whoever comes up for a shot. So Walgreens throughout the area, they have those shots, and if they have extras, you just go in and ask, and they'll let you know if they have them, and they'll give you your shot that day. So if you have a family that is in need or someone searching for it, that's one way that they may be able to do it without having to schedule if they're not having any success.
Right.
And with that, New Bethel also has shots. You have to call to register for that. And just so you know, I took my shot about 2-3 weeks ago. Thought I was going to die, but every morning I woke up with 10 fingers and 10 toes. So if anyone hasn't taken it and if they're concerned, I'm just saying for me, even my husband said, I can't believe you took the shot because you talked so much trash about it, but I did, out of the concern for my mom, who's here as well, almost 80 years old. So I'll be taking my second shot, I think this weekend. So if anybody's concerned about taking the shot, I'm just saying for me personally, I've taken it and I had absolutely no side effects with the first shot. I've heard rumors about the second, but I'm just going to take it and deal with whatever happens. So pray for this.
I've had both shots, no problem with the first one. A few aches with the second one, took 2 Tylenols, and I'm fine. So I encourage everyone to take it. Mine was Moderna, but I've had both shots. I've
had Pfizer, and I want to also say that somebody in the medical industry said to me today, the concern is when people take this shot that they don't think they become immune to catching COVID, because that's not it. The goal is that if you do still get COVID, you just won't get it as severe as if you did not have the shot. So he said it's really important that people realize it's not a cure. It's just like the flu. You can take the shot, and hopefully if you get the flu, you don't get a severe case where you end up in the hospital. So hopefully, we will all get that shot so we can open up our businesses and open up our lives and start hugging people versus rubbing elbows. I'm so tired of that. So we'll see. So thank you, and everybody have a good night.
Very good. Thank you, board. And I'm going to adjourn unless I hear any objections. Not hearing any, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.